Hi there, my name is Renee Hobbs, and welcome to the Media Smart webinar. Today's date is Tuesday, January 19th, and we are delighted to host a special seminar, a research seminar tonight, with our visiting scholar from the Media Education Lab, a visiting scholar from the University of Brasilia, named João Guimarães. And I probably mangled that, but I don't do Portuguese well, so this is the American translation. I'm also delighted to see other people joining us this evening. I see Zoe Wan from the University of Rhode Island. I see Graciela up. She just disappeared. Maybe she will be back. And I see Frank Romanelli, also from the University of Rhode Island, and perhaps some of you are watching us live. We welcome you to join the Hangout. You can click the Join the Hangout to join us this evening, and we're delighted even if you're watching the recording. So allow me to introduce you to our presenter this evening. He'll offer a summary of his research examination of media literacy in the context of physical education, and then we'll have about 30 minutes of dialogue and discussion. Joe, thanks for participating in our Media Smart webinar, sponsored by the Media Education Lab. Take it away.
Okay, so first, thank you very much, Renee, for having me here, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to the Media Education Lab for this opportunity to talk about my work. So what I'm going to be doing today is talking a little bit of what I'm doing in Brazil. So as Renee said, my name is João Guimarães, but you can call me João because it is hard to pronunciate. So I'm going to start sharing the screen now, okay? So I am part of this research group in Brasilia. We are part of the University of Brasilia, and the theme I'm going to present for you today is media literacy and physical education in Brazil. First, I'd like to talk a little about our group. We are part of the physical education department in the University of Brasilia, and we are led by Professor Ingrid Vigers. And our focus is on an interdisciplinary approach related to body education, childhood, schooling processes, and media education as the main topics. So, my research. First of all, I would like to talk a little about the context we work with. And when we talk about childhood, I think it's important to say that childhood is we see childhood as a social construction, and this social construction, the kids, they are part of this peer culture, and they reproduce things about culture in their own way. So by that, they will construct their own culture, this childhood culture. And it's also important, I think, to talk about the relationship between media and sports, mostly when sport is this spectacle, and we can see this deep relationship mostly in the sponsorships theme and in broadcasting. An example is the volleyball, which had some of their rules change because of broadcasting. So to see how deep is this connection between the media and the sport. So let's go. My project, it was a 10-week workshop in sports and media unit. It was a media production project. That being said, the kids were expected to produce something. It was a teacher research based on this approach by Langsher Nobel. We took field notes and we built an audio journal, which we transcribed and analyzed later. It was a research with 9 and 10-year-old kids, and it was in a Brazilia's public school. Our goals were to analyze the influence of media on the meanings attributed to sport by children. It was also to observe and analyze the processes and the products of media literacy education and sports workshop with children. And the third one was to observe the potential of a media literacy and physical education practice with children in a Brazilian public school. Okay, so then, what did we do? The first thing it's important to say is that we had this little struggle when planning and when actually doing it. So the plan was really different from the reality in some points. First of all, the plan was a day-based plan. So independent of the time the kids would took, we would only use one day for each topic or theme. Then we found out that it was not possible. So it turned out to be a subject base. We did this subject, we took the theme, and we would only stop with it when kids achieve their goals. Also, we did plan a sports practice, which we could not do because it lacked space and time, and so that was really a pity, which led us to the next change, that the plan was sports-centered, and in reality, we couldn't practice, so it ended up being media-centered because we would experience sport through the media, as we're going to see later. And the last one, we were previewing maybe using photograph, and in reality, we could only use the video. So the workshop we took these three main subjects. The first one was the media approaching. So what we did here, it was at first when we started with kids, the first activity, I gave them all the cameras and I would ask them only to take some footages and make a short movie, free exploring, about the school. So they took the cameras and went out just filming everything they felt important to share. Then after, we made this screening. We made a screening moment, and kids really liked it. They would ask me for play the movies once, twice. I think we maybe have saw the movies 3 or 4 times each one. And the good thing was that every time I would show them, I would ask them some questions. So I would ask them about the quality of the sound, the quality of the light, and they would start to be more critical about it because they would start to pay attention as they would watch it again and again and again. And then we went to this third moment, which was remaking. They would take everything they discussed about it and try to improve their first videos, maintaining the theme and trying to make it better. So after all that, we went to the second subject, the media and sports. So here we started talking about sports, and to initiate that, the first thing we did was talk about advertising and target audience, because mostly sports are every time related to ads, to sponsors, and so we believe that this was an important thing to talk about. And the first thing I asked them was, what is target audience? And the kids didn't know. They stood there and they didn't know what to say. So I started asking more questions. So to reach that, I asked them, tell me, do you have a favorite ad? What ad do you like? And they would give me this one as example. I'm gonna play it. It's in Portuguese, but I hope you can understand by.
Vem, verão, vem. Mais uma Itaipava. É pra já. Vai, verão. Vem, verão, vem. Vai. Verão! Ó. Prontinho. Vai, verão, vai. Vem. O verão é nosso. Itaipava, a cerveja assim.
So as you can see, this is a beer advertised, and that took me by surprise when the kids chose this particular ad as their favorite. So, but it was good because I could ask them, so who is this ad for? And at first they wouldn't know what to say, so I'd ask them, do you drink beer? And they said to me, no, I don't. I'm just a kid. So then I asked them, who drinks beer? And they would say to me, my dad, my mom. And so it led them to realize that these advertisements were for adults. They said to me, okay, so I get it. The target audience are the adults. And I said, yeah, but also, what do you think about the girl? And then they realized that it was mostly adult men. So it was really nice to see that happening by questioning them. Then after, when they realized about target audience, the concept, we did this screening of sports-based advertising. So I would show to them some ads that were connected to sports. One example is this one that they loved it. Again, it's in Portuguese, but I think we couldn't understand mostly. And this is an ad from the soccer national team sponsor. It's a cell phone company, and the main idea that this ad gives us is that in Brazil, every child dreams about being a soccer player. Okay, so this is a Brazilian fighter who's really famous, such as soccer.
Bom, o Anderson se virou em outro esporte. E a gente ganhou mais um item.
Mas quer saber? Jogar na seleção sempre foi meu grande sonho.
Estreia da seleção brasileira, um novo camisa 10, carregando toda a esperança de um povo.
Já sabe o caminho do gol, hein?
Ajeitou, limpou, bateu, nossa mãe, que coisa horrorosa!
Ele pegou na orelha da bola.
Perdeu! Corre atrás! Não! Ele apelou!
Ô Anderson, vamos dar um tempo aí que nós vamos apresentar a bola pra você, tá bom?
Apitei 26 anos, nunca vi isso na minha vida. Olha lá, vai sair Anderson Silva. Ia sair Anderson Silva.
Você não tem nada de futebol.
Ih, o que é isso? Ele bate com as duas, Juarez.
Anderson Silva, cada enxadada uma minhoca.
O futebol tem 17 regras, ele não conhece nenhuma.
Anderson Silva, eu acho que a cigana te enganou, hein?
Fim de jogo. É uma noite a ser esquecida pelo futebol brasileiro.
Anderson, um abraço.
Silva é a promessa que se apaga.
É o adeus
Silva,
que teve só uma noite.
Brasil.
Onde anda Anderson Silva?
Olha o camarão. Camarãozinho aí.
Acorda.
Okay, so this ad, kids loved it. It's funny. It's something they love, the sport, and it was nice to talk about. It was good that we could talk about a lot of things. I asked them, for example, do you want to be a soccer player? Have you ever dreamed about? And most of the kids, actually all of them, tell me, I don't want to be. I've never dreamed about. So we could start talking about this idea that why would dad say that? So, and who is advertising? And they told me, okay, is that cell phone company? And they acknowledged that, and we could start talking about sponsorship a little bit, and they could at least understand what was a sponsor. Then we took the third activity, where I asked them to draw some product from their imagination. They would create anything they would ever imagine, so they could sell, which lead us to the third topic, which was the advertising production, where they would make this short film trying to sell their product. The thing is, they ended up making this video much more information than really an ad. So we could talk about, so what do an ads sell? What's the difference between what you did and what we watched? At first they couldn't realize them. I asked them, again, always asking, what's your dream product? And they would say, oh, okay, it's this marvelous cell phone. And then I asked them, what does it do that your cell phone doesn't do? And they didn't know what to say, because it does almost everything that the other do. So we could at the end realize, the kids realized that it sells an idea. And they would say to me, it's everything about status. Okay, so that was really interesting. And then we went to the third subject, that was making a movie. I started talking with them about angles, frames, and camera movements. Then we did this screenplay. They created a screenplay. I asked them to view the storyboard. We did the shooting, and then we did the screening. The important thing here is that they did not edit the movie. I was the one who edited. So I could see that they wanted to, I could see that they were really interested in it, but we had no time and we had no resources. So this was the workshop. And the 4 topics emerged from this workshop, and is the discussion I'm going to try to build here. The 4 topics are the transgression, the interest, the sexuality, and violence. First, the transgression. What I mean is the classroom chaos. They every day would walk around. It was just me getting there, and they would go crazy. Mostly, I believe that happened because cell phones were not allowed in school. So since we were using their cell phones, they had no experience on using them in school. So there's a big difference between the school behaviors, what they learn in school, and what they learn in home, in their homes, how they use the cell phones in their homes. So actually, they were only doing what they know what to do with their cell phones. So that's why I think that's why I saw that as a transgression. And also, it's important to acknowledge that the creative thinking and expression can often seem as chaotic, because kids are talking and kids are collaborating with each other. They will stand up and walk around the room, talk with each other, and it seems a little bit chaotic. The second topic is the topic of interest. So in different moments, I could see that kids seem interested or not. And actually, we are unable to say for certain. But as a teacher and a researcher at the moment, I could have my perception. And what I perceived, it was that at 2 moments, I could say the interests were higher. In the first exploration, the first thing they do, because I believe it was something new. And the final production, because it was something that they were really involved with. And the 2 moments I saw the interest not so high, it was on the ads production and in the remaking of the first exploration. They really didn't like it so much. And that's interesting because Dewey also talks about real interest and making things interesting, and how this is different, because the real interest comes from inside the person, comes from the self, and the making interest comes from the outside. And there's also these 2 authors, Hitty and Henninger. They present us a 4-phase model of interest development, and they tell us that the interest, it is developed in 4 phases. It is linear, but it has no specific time. The first one is the triggered situational interest. It's when the kid begins to be interested in something. Something triggers its his or her interest. Then it leads to a maintained situational interest that leads to an emergent individual interest and ends up with a well-developed individual interest. So I believe we could say that these two are more talking about the real interest that Dewey was referring to, and the first two ones are more about making things interest, how to gain kids' interest. And in my research, I could say that the kid who went further went to the third phase and was a kid who asked me about editing and talked me about searching at his home for softwares and things like that. So I could see that he had this individual interest that really emerged. But I don't think anyone actually got to the 4th stage, but the 3rd one was already really good. The 3rd topic is the sexuality, and to illustrate that I have these 3 moments. The first one was this moment where kids were together and listening to music. It was a free time, and they were listening to this explicit music. It's a Brazilian funk. It has some heavy lyrics, and at the moment I couldn't know what to do. So I just took some notes and okay, I'm gonna have to talk about sexuality. The second one is the beer advertised that I showed you. It is really sexual appealing. So, and kids choose as their favorite ad, so that's important. And the third moment was this surprising moment where I could reach kids and they talked to me about porn and how they had access to porn. It didn't last too long because then they realized, okay, I'm talking to an adult and I must shut up now. But I could reach the surface of this topic with them and it caught my attention. So I asked myself, how should I react to moments like this? First, as a teacher, what should I say? What should I teach them? And secondly, as a researcher, because I want to know everything I can, but how deep can I go? And this is a sensitive topic, obviously. And also, it's really complex. If we think why kids would like to do things like this, we could say maybe it's pleasure on the taboo, maybe it's only aesthetics pleasure, they like the music, they like the sound, maybe it's for the transgression, maybe it's real sexual pleasure, and maybe some other reasons, and maybe lots of them mixed with. So it is interesting that I didn't felt really prepared to talk about it. And some other researchers already showed us that most of teachers don't feel prepared to talk about it. And some other researchers showed us also that children actually can experience their own kind of sexuality. So they do have this sexuality with them. So we should maybe not avoid to talk about it. And other thing interesting was the reactions of the kids to some moments. All the 3 images were shown to the kids. The first one makes just this general reaction. All the kids reacted, boys and girls, and they directed this reaction to the teacher. They say, oh, okay, naughty teacher, he likes this. The second one was actually, this is a print of an advertise also, and the reaction was only from boys. Girls wouldn't say anything, but boys would go crazy. And in the third one, again, both of the groups reacted, girls and boys. Girls reacted in a positive way, and boys in a negative way. They would say, no, take it off, I don't like this picture, and girls would go crazy. So what is funny here, what is interesting, is that girls in the second one didn't say anything, but boys in the third one, they would say, no, okay, take this out, I don't like it, and that really caught my attention too. The third topic is the violence. Sorry, the fourth topic is the violence. It's the last one, and it was really the moment where the only sport was represented. So I was looking for sports, and I could only find sports when we talked about violence, and mostly in the mixed martial arts, the MMA, and at the same time the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. They loved it. They were talking about everything every time. They even made this short movie at the end about the UFC. And it is common to have this discourse about media influence, and I actually could see it. I can see that the UFC and the violence in sports really served as a background to the kids, but I think we shouldn't take that discourse about keeping kids away from it. Actually, I did think it was really good, and mostly because kids were only play fighting. They were not actually fighting. They were just playing. And this play fighting I could see in 3 moments. The first moment was between chaos. I was in the classroom, I was trying to get them calm, but they were chaotic. The second one, it was in spontaneous play. It was their free time, their leisure time, they were already done with everything, and they would play fight. And the third one was in the production time. They choose the topic as a theme, and they would make this production about it. So I bring this work from Farias, and he puts play fighting in 7 topics, in 7 types of play fighting. So for the first moment, between chaos, I could find the first one, which is overthrowing, hitting, kicking, and immobilizing. The third one, which is using martial arts and institutionalized sports as gestures. And the fourth one, as the most one in these moments, which is attacks in response to an action or a provocation. Actually, it's important to say that this fourth one is not bullying, because the kids who were involved, all of them were having fun, all of them were playing, and they were doing because they wanted to. So they were actually playing. They were not bullying each other. The second moment, the spontaneous play, were mostly the first and the third one, again, but not the fourth. Mostly the first and the third. And the third moment, the production time, it was only the third one. They use martial arts and institutionalized sports as a theme, as the UFC, the MMA, which is an institution, the UFC. And we could also relate to the sixth one that says with inspiration from media content, because most of the institutionalized sports are consumed through the media. So it has some relationship there. And the last question I ask myself is, when should I interfere? What are the limits of this play fighting? And one single event happened where one kid got hurt accidentally play fighting. So we could stop, everybody stopped, and when we could talk about it as a group. So I asked them, what are the limits? And the funny thing was that each kid had one different answer. So one would say it's okay to punch the arms, the other say okay to punch the legs, it's not okay to punch the face, the belly, whatever. So there were different regulations. Each kid had their own self-regulation, which probably came from previous experience of playing at their homes with their cousins and their families, and so on. Okay, so just my conclusions were, first, the workshop, it was good, it promoted good discussions and good critical thinking. It had a positive outcome. Second, kids came closer to media literacy awareness, mostly related to movie making, because we could not make another type of media. Kids also show this particular interest in editing, as I said before, and I think it could be more effective in increasing this media literacy awareness, the editing activities, which it's really a shame that I couldn't do with them. Also, I could see the link between physical education and media literacy, mostly in advertising and in playfighting, in the violence discussions. There is this link between physical education and media literacy that can be explored. Also, about the transgression, we certainly need more studies. It lacks literature about this topic. It is something that needs more studies, more researching. Interest also is obviously an important subject in education, and the engaged moments proved to be really effective. They would have these marvelous discussions and will show really critical thinking when they were really interested in the topic. It is necessary to acknowledge the existence of complexity of the existence and the complexity of kids' sexuality. We need to promote respect, and we need to be open to discuss it. Violence should not be simplified as a bad thing. We need to talk about it, and play fighting should to be healthy, in a healthy way to experience conflicts and to explore the body for the kids themselves. I think it's important to explore the teachable moments within this play fighting. And last, I think media content seems to activate children's creativity and serve as a background to children playing, mostly by, I could see this mostly by the UFC things and the MMA. So I have these suggestions for future research, some topics I would like to go further. And first would be, I think it's important for us to try to understand the norms of conduct in different places and institutions. For example, how kids use their cell phones at home and at school, and with their friends, with their families. The internet using at home, at the school, at the library. The play fighting at the playground, at school, whatever, you know. I think this difference between places, between environments, it's important for us to understand it. Second, I think it's important to look for ways to access and promote the topics of students' interests. This is really important, and I don't think we are able to understand kids' interests really at all. And the third one is, I think we need to ask ourselves how to ethically access and discuss the theme of sexuality directly with children. Can we do that? How deep can we go? And I think this is a very good topic, and we need to go deeper. So that was my presentation. Here is my email. Feel free to send me any questions after this, or to make me questions now, please. It was really good for me. Thank you very much for your attention and for the time and for the invitation. Okay, that's it. I'm going to show my face now.
Okay, so thank you very much. We'll give a little applause there for a good effort, and what a fascinating research inquiry you have, what a journey you have been on. Children ages 9 and 10 doing some media analysis, some media production, looking at advertising, looking at the representation of sport, and dealing with issues like play fighting and children's sexuality. What a great, rich set of cans of worms opened up. These are issues still we know so little about in the area of media education. So let me turn it over to the participants. What questions or comments do you have to Joe about ideas that you found yourself thinking about when you were listening to his presentation?
Hi, Joe. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. That was amazing. This presentation was really eye-opening and really got me thinking a lot of things. I made some notes, and might not be like regulated, but the first of all, I really like that you're thinking of you as a teacher as well as a researcher. I really like that approach, and that thinking about your role in this whole research project. When you said about the creative thinking and expression between the chaotic appearance in the student making media, how do you see yourself as a teacher, and how do you encourage your students' creative thinking while you are controlling the chaotic situation? That was one thing I'm curious about.
Good question. So how do you support students' creativity while managing managing the classroom? Joe?
Yeah. So thank you first. Well, actually, as a first-time teacher at the moment, I found myself really struggling with the chaos and what other teachers would think about, and I always try not to interfere in their creative thinking. I would always say, always say, okay, do what you want to do. Let me know what you want to do. What are your urges? What are you interested in? Okay, you want to do a different topic, do it. Be creative. Try to do what you want to do. And I really struggled with the class management. I think, first of all, as a teacher, maybe I should try to practice this a little bit more. I actually could not handle very well. That's my reality. But I try to be as the most supportive I could be with the kids. Okay, you want to do this, and it was hard. I won't lie, it was really hard. I struggled with.
It's actually, Zoe, it's like, isn't it interesting? It's a topic we discussed in the last Media Smart seminar. First-year teachers often struggle with classroom management. In the United States, we have a great book we recommend. We've used it at the Media Education Lab a lot to teach beginning teachers about classroom management. It's a book called Teach Like a Champion by, what's his name? Doug Lemov. Great book about 50 techniques for classroom management that are just terrific. But Zoe, I invite you to ask another question or make another comment, because this idea of creativity and control, an important topic. What other issues were you intrigued by in Joe's presentation?
I was quite a few more actually. I made a note about the topic. He talked about the real interest and make it interest. I wonder. I was thinking about the internalization of the issues or the knowledge that they are getting from making media productions, and and the self-expression while they're making it. And I also think about Vygotsky's social cultural theory about how they look at media presentations as their interest. And also I made a note about when you talk about the sexuality, and I wonder, and the interesting thing is about the reaction between boys and girls, and I wonder if there is media effect in terms of children or kids identifying themselves. Another thing I feel interesting about is the play fighting. I'm not quite sure, but I'm just thinking about Vygotsky's theory about the role of play in children's development, and how do you see the play fighting versus violence?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are
wow, a whole bunch of things to respond to, Joe, and I'll underline Zoe's last point, which is some media effects researchers might see play fighting as a form of imitation or rehearsal of the behaviors that kids have seen enacted in the media. Therefore, essentially seeing play fighting as problematic or exemplifying an example of being influenced by media. You do not seem to have this position.
No.
And it was good to hear more about your reasoning around not seeing play fighting as tied to the media effects tradition. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So I'm start from the last question, the play fighting. Actually, I see the play fighting as I see as a representation of things kids see, but also as something that is natural for the human being. Actually, I don't think violence should be seen as always bad. Actually, maybe if you took violence as in a more general concept, because everything is risky. Sports actually are always most of the times have this violent thing and this risky thing that the humans always loved. And I don't think kids only play fighting because they watch it on the TV or anything. Actually, I think human beings like to play fighting for a long time. It is a way to express feelings. It is a way to live some feelings in reality without actually hurting anybody. You experience some urges that you have, some feelings you have from this other person. And for example, if you see some animals love to play fight. Dogs are always play fighting, and just an example from another point of view. And I do understand the thing about the influence in kids, but I see it as a background, not as leading kids to be violent in the future.
I am really intrigued about that. Right now in the media literacy literature, the only real literature on the topic of media violence is framed from an media effects tradition, with the idea that teaching kids that they shouldn't imitate, that the violence they see in the media is not real, and I think you're opening a door to a whole new framing. And it will be interesting to see what you discover in the years ahead.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that you observe that while they are play fighting, they tend to realize what is okay, what is not okay. Do you see that is helpful for their understanding or their creative critical thinking? Versus if you just the inhibition would even make things worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what you think? Okay.
Yeah, that's my point. At the moments, these violent moments they had, I always try to not prohibit them, not forbid them. I would let them play. Of course, at some moments in the chaos in the classroom, you're trying to do this different activity, then you ask them to stop. But where they could be doing whatever they want at their free time and the production time, I would always allow them to do as they wanted to. And I really struggled with this thing about the limit, because you don't want anybody to get hurt. and I think we should talk to them about that. How not to get hurt, and why do we play? Why do you like to play fighting? Okay, it is nice, it is fun. Does it hurt? When it hurts, it's okay. You can handle it. You can. I think this is really interesting.
Yeah, and especially this idea of the discovering the divergence in social norms. Like, so the idea that, you know, what's okay, where are the limits of play fighting, and discover, you know, one group of kids thinks it's okay to do this, this, and this, another has this, and it's like, okay, well, that does explain why people might get hurt, right? Because your limits are here, your limits are here.
Yeah.
There's got to be some conflict. But I wanted to ask you a question about the issue of sexuality, and especially this idea when you ask kids to pick their favorite commercial.
Okay.
They pick a beer ad.
Yeah.
And a sexually stereotypical beer ad, right? With the girl as an object of lust, right?
Yeah.
So a Frankfurt theorist or a Marxist interpretation of this phenomenon would be children really are the target audience, not adult heterosexual males. That long before you start drinking, the marketing of the alcohol marketing business is actually communicating to a very wide target audience about the normativeness of male heterosexual lust and alcohol.
Yeah.
Aligning alcohol with healthy male heterosexual lust, seeing that as normal. So how would you respond to a critique that would say, well, teaching them about target audience is ridiculous because they really are, those 9-year-olds obviously are the target audience for this ad. How would you respond to that critique?
So, first of all, I can understand the critique very well, but I even thought about that, but I didn't have the deep knowledge to discuss it. But at that point, I only thought about doing it the traditional way, because I think it would be really hard to understand the concept of target audience if I started with a complex viewing of this, you know, a complex understanding. If I started with a complex understanding, kids would be maybe wouldn't understand it at all. So I needed.
Good point. Good point. So you simplified on purpose.
Yeah.
For a pedagogical goal.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I have to agree at a certain point with this critique, because I do believe the range of the target, it's wide, and that's something we need to be concerned about. But if we teach kids to understand target audience step by step, I think we can make them critically about these ads, and maybe say, okay, in the future, maybe I could say with these kids, oh, pay attention. If you like it, maybe you were a target audience, okay? But I think pedagogically, I did need to simplify it.
Yeah, I think you made a wise choice in that regard. The concept of target audience is not that easy to teach to very young children, 9 and 10 years old. I have experienced this as well, and so I do think you made a wise choice on that. I wonder if Graciela or Frank, who are also on this call, have a comment or a question about this fascinating research presentation by young João Guimarães from the University of Brasilia. Frank?
I do have some questions, Joe.
Okay.
Thank you for a great presentation, first of all. So my experience of working with kids starts at age 10, interestingly. Yours was with an age group that I have not worked with. But what I found, I was a behavior manager in a middle school, grades 5 through 8. So as the assistant principal, behavior was my job. And what I saw was change in my students roughly around the age of 12, puberty, middle of 6th grade, where they started caring more about what each other thought of them and less about what we thought of them. And their behavior seems to be built around that. So I thought that was an interesting point to me. I want to make all my points so I can mute again and listen to your answers. So my question, I guess, to you about that is, do you have any experience or knowledge or any research about how these things manifest themselves with different age groups? My second question is about, you mentioned spontaneous play, and I know that's a big issue right now in education, and how spontaneous play leads to creative thinking. And when you mentioned spontaneous play, is there a time in their day where they're given actual time for spontaneous play that's not directed by an adult? And my last question is about the violence issue. I kind of agree with you to some degree. I've watched kids and I've watched animals. It seems to me like there are a couple of pretty common themes. One is chasing, the other is dominating. And it seems to be that maybe there's something in our genes that use this as a way to help us build ourselves, something primal. But beyond that, I think Renee's point is very important. The idea of alcohol and sexuality being presented to kids through media and advertising. I wonder if that's a foul on the part of our advertisers in terms of conditioning these kids to want to make that connection as they get older. So those are all my questions. I'll shut up.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your questions. So about the different ages, I don't know any research. I would love to see any research about that. I think we need to look into this because it is important. It is really a good perception you have when you say they start caring about what each other thinks. And I think I agree with you very much, but I would love to see some researchers in the area. Unfortunately, I don't know anyone. About the spontaneous play, at the school, they had only the recesses to play how they wanted to, and they were limited. And during the workshop, it would be, if they finished the activity, I would let them. And there were some days I would meet them and say, okay, today is a free day. You can take the camera and do whatever you want. You can just play. I have lots of footages of them filming them just playing, and I think it was really nice. These moments, they were really rich. But I think I need to look deeper to discuss them, about this freedom topic. And about the alcohol and sex being presented to kids in the media with ads and the television. I agree too that we need to try not to expose them too much, but I think we need to know what is too much, what is the limit, where does the line goes, because we need to talk about with kids, we need to talk about sex, we need to talk about violence, because they are experiencing, they are feeling it, and if we just try not to let them get to the content, maybe they will get it, since, for example, they do have access to porn. So how do they have access to porn? How can we stop that? And maybe that's something we need to talk to them. Why they shouldn't be if they shouldn't, why they shouldn't, why can't them watch, and why can't them play fight? And I agree that we need to be concerned with the content, but I also think we need to understand the line before. Understand the line.
I also spent a lot of time working with the students. I just found a quieter place. I used to spend a lot of time working with the students about the consequences of behaviors and them knowing that their choices, choice theory of William Glasser helped me a lot with my own classroom management, with my school management. But just letting the students know that, you know, there was a natural consequence for every behavior, and if they could be aware of that before they got into the passion of the behavior, I think it helped them pull themselves out when they needed to. But still, as kids, they didn't always have the power to do that, so they still needed us to help them guide.
Yeah.
And I agree with you on the sexuality issue, that the younger we can start talking to them about what they're thinking about in a safe and positive way, the better it could be for them. But thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question following up on Frank's
Sure.
interesting point, and you're interested in continuing to explore this issue of kids' sexuality, especially in relation to porn. So I am only guessing, but because I don't know the Brazilian context so well. But in the United States, most elementary school teachers are female, right? And also in the United States, most elementary school teachers are old, right? So I am wondering, how might your identity position, right? Your identity position as a young man, right? How might that identity position have created an opportunity both for play fighting, but also for talk about and performance of sexual questions about sexuality? So how do you think your own identity may have influenced the kids' comfort level in displaying these behaviors and sort of talking to you about their experience?
Okay, good question. Well, when I think it influenced it very much. I think it was really important that I am a young man. I didn't seem to be a teacher all the time. I wasn't at the school all the time. I wasn't trying to civilize them or something like this. I just came for the workshop and then I would go away. I would talk with them about media, about ads. I would use their cell phones. They would love that. So I could come closer to kids because of it. And I think it was an important thing. But I don't know if this was maybe only because of the looks or something like this, but I actually believe it really mattered, because since the first day they would come and say hi and talk to me like I was one of their buddies, and which also maybe made me struggle with a bit of transgression, because they wouldn't see me with such importance, so powerful in the school, you know.
So in some ways, that the fact that your authority was more at a peer level, both created the problem with classroom management, but it also created the opportunity for them to self-disclose and be more authentic.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, true. It is.
Fascinating.
Wow.
Oh, well. So it is 9 o'clock now, time for us to end this session. But what a fascinating discussion we have had with João Guimarães from the University of Brasilia. He is an emerging media literacy scholar, and we look forward to learning more with you in the research you have ahead. So we'll give you a little round of applause again. Thank you for discussing your research project with us. I also want to thank our participants this evening: Frank Romanelli, Graciela, Zoe Wang. I'm Renee Hobbs at the University of Rhode Island and the Media Education Lab. thanks for joining us. Now, in just a couple of weeks, we have an event coming up on, I don't know if I can find this. The next session, I think, is with Elizaveta Frasum, and I think the topic is also about gender. Let's see if I can just confirm that event. Please stay tuned on Tuesday, February 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for talk about media, gender, and hegemony. Elizaveta Frasum is going to share some ideas about that, and obviously a very nice next topic in our Media Smart webinars. Thanks for joining me. Joe, I'm hoping to see you in Brasilia, or when you come back and visit us again in the United States. Have a safe journey back home. Thanks for being part of our community. Good night.
Good night.
Oh, bye. Oh, bye.